rare rebuke of the Trump White House from a Republican. It is coming from Senator Rand Paul, who is accusing the White House of immaturity and petty vindictiveness. His words, this after he and his family were disinvited from the annual White House picnic. The White House has not responded to these comments. Perspective now from our chief congressional correspondent, Manu Raju. Manu, what more is Senator Paul saying?
Well, he's very frustrated, John. In fact, this is an event that is a bipartisan one. Democrats and Republicans typically attend this every single year with presidents of both parties. Paul has been to 10 of these, but he thinks he is now the first senator ever to be disinvited from this event. He believes this is what, quote, petty vindictiveness. He says that he has lost a lot of respect from Donald Trump for doing this. And he says that not just him, he's not the only one who's been disinvited. He said also his nearly 6-month-old grandson can't come to this event.
I just find this incredibly petty. I have been a intellectual opponent, a public policy opponent, and he's chosen now to uninvite me from the picnic and to say my grandson can't come to the picnic. I just the level of immaturity is beyond words. And so they've decided they want to declare war on my family and exclude us from the White House. I just think it really makes me lose a lot of respect I once had for Donald Trump. But petty vindictiveness like this, I don't know. It makes you wonder about the quality of people you're dealing with. And the same people that are directing this campaign are the same people that casually would throw out parts of the Constitution and suspend habeas corpus. So I think what it tells that they don't like hearing me say stuff like that. And so they want to quiet me down, and it hasn't worked.
You're talking about Stephen Miller. And I went on to ask whether or not Stephen Miller, who's of course a very powerful White House aide, whether or not Rand Paul thinks he should continue to work at the White House. And John, he said, quote, I'm just going to leave it at that. But this is why this is significant too, John. Rand Paul has a vote, and there's a narrow Republican Senate majority. In fact, just 3 Republican senators. That's all that Donald Trump can afford to lose on a party line vote, particularly one to move across his massive bill to implement his domestic agenda. That bill is one that Paul himself has been sharply critical of because of his concerns over the deficit, concerns that it would raise the national debt limit. He does not want that to be part of this bill. And of course, that is what has caused Donald Trump and his aides like Stephen Miller to criticize Paul so sharply over the last several days and weeks. But he is indicating, John, that despite this move, which he calls vindictive and petty, he said he's not changing his position. He does not believe this pressure campaign ultimately will work.
Had a lot to say to you there, Manu. Manu Raju, thank you very much.
David, I want to ask you because Senator Rand Paul, Republican of Kentucky, who has not been on the program, as it were, when it comes to President Trump's big, beautiful bill. He says it adds too much to the deficit. He was also critical of the military parade taking place this Saturday, saying that it's the kind of thing you see in North Korea, not America. Apparently, he was upset that there's been some blowback from the White House.
Well, apparently he was talking to Manu Raju and other reporters on Capitol Hill and went on quite a lengthy tirade, if you will, complaining about what he saw as pettiness for being disinvited. Just in the last few hours, apparently he got word that he was disinvited from the White House's congressional picnic tomorrow. He said, these are the kinds of things I've been at for 10 years here. Go to the White House every year. He had his grandson, young grandson going with him. And he said, now my grandson has been disinvited from the White House because they're playing petty politics. He also made clear that, he's still a potential yes vote on the bill if they remove the debt ceiling increase from it, that he would be open to voting for the bill. And he said, but they clearly have already counted me out of that calculation because this isn't what you would do if you were trying to actually woo somebody.
Yeah, I mean, White House officials say this is not surprising at all. Rand Paul has been a thorn in their side as they view it. They have been irritated with what he's been saying about the bill. They don't think he's going to ever get to be a yes vote because they're not getting rid of raising the debt ceiling in this vote or in this bill because they can't, they believe. And so they've been irritated by this. So their kind of view on this when I talked to some people was, why would he be invited to the White House?
Yeah, I just have this flashback to 10 years ago, the Republican debate that CNN did at the Reagan Library, and one of the very first things President Trump did, then citizen Trump did, was complain that Rand Paul was on the stage. It was like one of the very first things out of his mouth. Not a lot of love lost there.
So, Dan, you just came from the White House, basically, and the Biden administration had some issues with Democratic senators at times, including the likes of Joe Manchin and others. What's the best way to get a reluctant senator on board? Disinviting him?
Look, I think it's really important that no matter what your party is or no matter what ideology, that you reach not only just across the aisle, but within your own party to bring people to yes. I mean, we all saw very publicly the original BBB, the Build Back Better bill, had a lot of struggles, in part because Senator Manchin couldn't get on board. But instead of alienating him or mocking him, President Biden reached to him, worked together, and we were able to pass one of the most successful climate legislations in the history of America. And so I think that is the kind of collaboration that Americans are really yearning for. I mean, the one thing that this poll really shows is just how divided people are right now. If you look at the difference between what Republicans are favoring or Democrats favoring. And so I think people are itching for a little leadership right now that shows that even if you disagree, you're going to come together and figure out a way to yes.
Matt, I grew up reading about Lyndon Johnson literally leaning on senators, literally leaning on them and grabbing them by lapels to get votes passed. So there's a place for hardball politics here, but only if it works, right? Is this working, do you think?
Well, we'll see. I don't think you're going to change Rand Paul's mind. I don't think there's much you can do to change Rand Paul's mind. I mean, anyone who's followed him knows that, he kind of gets stuck in his ways, for better or for worse. The shame of it is that clearly, if you look at even this polling and you're extrapolated, I got to imagine that if you go to voters in Kentucky and say, do you want your sitting U.S. senator to oppose Donald Trump's bill, which is going to encapsulate the agenda he campaigned on? That ain't going to be very popular for Rand Paul. And at the end of the day, that's going to be, if he votes for this bill, that's going to be the reason why. It's because his constituents are going to be overwhelmingly for it. And he's going to be concerned about the political implications. If not, I do just want to touch on one thing Dan said. Actually, back in the Medicaid piece, Dan even said 90% of recipients are deserving of it. That means there's 10% of fraud. And that's exactly what this bill does. It addresses the 10% of fraud that we're seeing in the Medicaid system to ensure that those 90% who do earn it actually we can afford to give them those benefits. So, I think we're actually saying the same thing, maybe a little bit of a different way.
Matt Mowers, Dan Koch, great to see both of you today. You can both come to my picnic. Invitation stand.